The Giants are reportedly talking to Matt Chapman's representatives about a long-term extension, but is it a good idea for the Giants to sign a player entering next year his age 32 season? Is it another Evan Longoria?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting Locked On Giants for 5.5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at supplyhouse.com. And coming up on today's show, it is mostly going to be a mailbag edition of the show, but we do have I don't want to call it breaking news, but Susan Slusser of the San Francisco Chronicle reporting today that the Giants, confirming today that from both Scott Boras, Matt Chapman's agent, and Farhan Zaidi, the Giants' president of baseball operations, that the two sides have engaged in extension conversations. And you might be saying, wait, I thought Matt Chapman, like technically it was announced as, I think, a 3-year deal or even a 4-year deal, even though that it really isn't that. It's a Matt Chapman, it has a player option every year of this contract that the Giants signed him to. And so given the season that he's having, which by kind of whatever metric you want to look at has been rather strong, he's, you might say, oh, the batting average is just 245. I love to belabor this point. That's above Major League average, just by the way, but barely. The on-base percentage is solidly above Major League average at 335. The slugging is solidly above Major League average at 442. He's got 20 homers, 12 steals. He's been caught only twice. Good base runner, about 3 runs above average on the bases. Good defender. It does kind of depend on which defensive metric you prefer. He's at plus 11 defensive runs saved and plus 4 StatCast fielding runs above average. So I tend to lean more towards StatCast, but no matter what you look at, like he's obviously a good defender, right? He's made a lot of errors this season, surprisingly. I think the most of his career, but 14. I guess not the most. He made 20 in 2018, but anyway, errors, fielding percentage, that is not the way to evaluate defense. And the point is that these sides are engaged in a dialogue about an extension. And so in this article by Slusser, she says that Chapman's agent, Scott Boras, told the Chronicle that there have been some talks. Giants president of baseball operations, Farhan Zaidi, confirmed that, saying, quote, "We've had conversations, we've had active dialogue." And then Scott Boras said, obviously they have interest, so we let them know that Matt plays well in San Francisco, plays well in the Bay Area, and having seasons like he did in 2018 and 19 with Oakland, and this year, it's a good environment for him. Certainly, we are interested in listening to what they have to say. And then Boras continued, obviously Matt's healthy this year, and he's among the top infielders in baseball in WAR. I do want to know, which WAR are you talking about? Because if you go to Baseball Reference, that's what I was saying. When I said defensive runs saved was at whatever, plus 11, and the StatCast one was like plus 5. That makes a big difference in the WAR number that these websites spit out. And so you have to cite them. Most people look at Baseball Reference, which has Chapman as like a top I don't even know where exactly he ranks, but it adds like another win when you use Baseball Reference versus Fangraphs and you're looking at WAR. But still, even on Fangraphs on the lower end of it, he's still at a 4.2 WAR season with another about 1 projected for the home stretch. 5 WAR season, that'd be one of the best years of his career. And so, yeah, he is having a very good year. And so he says one of the top infielders in baseball in WAR. So he's kind of sitting there in a class by himself. Obviously, Boras talking up his client here. He says also, though, San Francisco has such a difficult time recruiting players in that market. And when you find players that do that, it's something where you've got to be aggressive. You should be aggressive because other teams are going to go grab these guys. So yeah, this is Scott. This is an agent, super agent Scott Boras talking about his client and talking him up. And so none of that surprises me, and none of that matters really. The way Boras talks like that, of course, he's always difficult to deal with, Scott Boras. But the point is that they're having those conversations, and so I've always thought, like, because of Matt Chapman's Bay Area ties, because of the fact that he is having a good season here, he just seems like a good fit here. It seemed, some players, they seem destined to not come back. Like Carlos Rodon, like it just felt like there's no way he's coming back. Kevin Gausman, it felt like he very well may come back, but he didn't. The Giants didn't even make him an offer, which is another story. But he also was a pitcher. And so Chapman may be like the first position player who is, $100 million plus type player who they've signed and on one of these deals with opt-outs or whatever. It's called a player option, but it's essentially the same as an opt-out. That it seems likely that there will be a reunion. Like if I had to place money on this, I would put the Giants as more than 50% likely that he will be playing on the Giants next season. That would be my guess. There's probably strong motivation by the Giants to secure a popular player who is also performing, not just popular but performing. And he's kind of an underrated star because these are like, at least all-star caliber numbers. He's not superstar caliber numbers. He's not Aaron Judge out here hitting 60 homers, but strong numbers and underperforming a little bit the expected numbers. And so he could be having an even better season if you look at the expected performance batting wise. About 13 points of weighted on base average, he's underperforming in terms of expected versus actual. So anyway, the question though is, do you lock up a player? Like, how long do you lock up a player who's entering his age 32 season next year? So Chapman turns 32 on April 28th of next year. And so that the cutoff date is like July 1st. And so it's the age 32 season if you turn 32 before July 1st. And so he will. And so let's say it's a 6-year deal. What would that be? 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. Through his age 37 season? Like I don't see them doing that. Maybe 36, age 36 season, but then I do worry about that for sure. Like that you run into another Evan Longoria type of situation where this was a really good player who was more mediocre to just, borderline, replacement level at the position. Not replacement level, like average, just average, and aging. Everybody's aging, but once you start getting 32 plus, I don't know how long they would want to go here. And so it's worth revisiting what is the contract that he signed to. It's for 2024, obviously, but then there's a player option for 2025, a player option for 2026, and then a mutual option for 2027. So after this season, it's essentially a 3-year deal. So I could see them maybe going 4 or 5. I think 6. I believe I started with 6 and saying that would take him through age 37. I just don't see that happening. But you never know. The question of is it a good idea or not, and like it totally depends on the length and on the terms. But he's a cornerstone type of player. I'm not saying he's gonna sell tons of season tickets or like carry you to the promised land, but he is a reliable, dependable, just good all around player. I think we've seen that this year. And then a leader too. I think that he has important leadership qualities. And so if the terms are right, 4 years, maybe 5, maybe like some kind of vesting 5th year option or something, or a club option for a 5th year, but just, worth it for Chapman too, then I would be happy to see this. And they don't have hardly any contracts on the books long term. The only one really, well, there's 2, Logan Webb and Jung-Hoo Lee are the only players signed for 2027 and beyond. Actually, Jordan Hicks is also signed for 2027. Those 2 are the only 2 signed for 2028. And Jung-Hoo Lee also 2029. Although Jung-Hoo Lee can opt out after 2027. So anyway, they don't have a lot of long-term deals on the books, and Chapman might be the right guy to be one of the few. So anyway, coming up in just a minute, we'll switch our attention to your mailbag questions. How many wins is it going to take for that 3rd wildcard spot? How many wins do the Giants need to get into the playoffs? We'll get to that and more in just a minute, and before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Liquid IV. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. The benefits are numerous, like staying hydrated while traveling, while going to summer festivals, or after a night out. You can blast off with the iconic summer flavor of Popsicle Firecracker, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon, lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. My mouth is literally watering. Find all your favorite flavors on their website, from acai berry and lemon lime to pina colada. Tear, pour, live more. 1 stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Supply House. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business, and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. All right, here we go. We're going to get to your mailbag questions. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, on Monday, we'll be breaking down what amounts to a crucial series in Seattle. Seattle's scuffling right now. They just fired their manager, like literally between their last game and this game tonight. They fired their manager, Scott Servais, after a 1-8 road trip. They're only at 500. They've fallen out of playoff position, on and on. So hopefully the Giants can kick a team while they're down here. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast. Host Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor and help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So, getting to the mailbag questions, the first one comes from Ed, who says, how many total wins do you think the Giants need to secure the third wild card spot? And so that is the golden question, right? That is the question that we want to know. Like, that is ultimately what decides, are you in or are you out, is how many wins do you need to get in? Duh, right? But of course, the MLB website is not letting me view the wild card standings, but I can just take a look at the teams. There we go. So the Giants, the Braves, unfortunately took 2 out of 3 from the Phillies. Stupid Phillies. And so they're now 4 games up on the Giants. With the Giants, a tie is not good enough. They have to pass the Braves because they lost 3 out of 4 at home. If they had just split that series, the Giants, a tie would be good enough and they would win the tiebreaker. So that was huge to have lost that. So that adds a whole extra win in my estimation, unless the Mets pass the Braves. And I do believe, and really should know because the Mets are that close, but I do believe the Giants hold the tiebreaker over the Mets. And so that's one scenario to kind of root for, is that the Mets pass the Braves and that you pass the Braves too, and then all you have to do is tie the Mets as opposed to pass them. So that's one. I have to confirm that, though. Don't take my total word for it. But anyway, I'm just looking at projections on Fangraphs. And projections on Fangraphs have the Braves finishing currently. This is a median projection, meaning they run like 10,000 simulations or something. And this is the middle result, is 87.7 wins for the Braves. And so, that's not quite 88. But if the Braves do have 88 wins, and by the way, the Padres and Diamondbacks both with a median projection right around 90. And so again, that's the median, which means half of the scenarios that play out, those teams are projected to win fewer than that number of games. And so, but all three, I don't know, so in this scenario, let's just say this was like dead on accurate and the Braves won 87.7, which is obviously impossible, but that would be rounded up to 88. The Giants would need 89 wins to secure the third wild card spot. So if that's what it takes, they're not going to do it. Like, it would take kind of a, somewhat of a historic finish for the Giants to get to 89 wins. Right now they're 65 and 64, which means they've played 129 games, which means there's only 33 games remaining. And so to get to 89 wins, Giants would need 24 wins. So 24-9 would be what that would take to get to 89 wins. So can they do teams go 24-9? Sure, it's possible, I guess. That's not, necessarily historic, but it would certainly be memorable. I think the more realistic scenario is hoping that the Braves and Mets don't play well down the stretch, and that it takes less than that, or just 1 or 2 of the Braves, Mets, Diamondbacks, and Padres. And part of the equation here is that the Giants play the Diamondbacks and Padres 6 games apiece, 33 games left, and 12 of those are against the Diamondbacks and Padres. So that's 12 out of 33 is 36.4% of the Giants' remaining games. More than a third of their remaining games are against the Diamondbacks or Padres. And so, the math may be that the Giants, it has to be the Padres or the Diamondbacks falling back for the Giants to get in, because you've got to play well, and those are the teams you're playing a lot. So anyway, I'm just going to say it's seemingly going to take at least 86, and that would be if if the Braves fall apart and you have some sort of tiebreaker, that's the thing too, is that if the tiebreakers haven't been determined yet versus the Padres and the Diamondbacks, because the Giants play those teams 6 more times each. And so if you win those series, like if you do well in those games, you'll win the tiebreaker, and that increases your chances. So you're going to have a chance by playing those teams, because it will knock them back if you win, it'll knock you up, and it'll give you the tiebreaker. And so those games are going to be absolutely critical. And I do believe the Giants hold the tiebreaker over the Mets. But I'm going to say like 87 wins might be the number that third wildcard team has. 86 or 87. I don't want to say 88. That's a little aggressive for me, but 86, 87, or 88 is probably like my final answer. So if I'm saying those three, then I'll go 87. But it depends on who the team is, because if I'm saying 87 is what that last team has, Giants could end up with 87 and in a tie with that other team and lose the tiebreaker. But I think like there's only really a scenario where that team is the Braves, because for the Giants to get to 87, it would probably mean playing well against the Padres and Diamondbacks, which would mean you would probably win those tiebreakers, and I believe they already have the tiebreaker over the Mets. So 87 or 88, that's my final answer for the Giants to get in, which would mean, what did I say, 33 games left. So they would need to go 22 and 11 to get to 87, and 21 and 12 to get to 86. Or 86. What am I talking about? I said 88. 23 and 9. No, 23 and 10 to get to 88. So 23 and 10 or 22 and 11. I'm saying this all wrong. I apologize. I said it right the first time. So you heard me, and that's what I'm going with, and that's my final answer. So the next question is from Kevin, who says, we as fans were told Kyle Harrison was a lot like Chris Sale. It seems like he's closer to Kirk Reeder. Why is that? So it's an interesting one here to look at Kyle Harrison, because he doesn't get talked about all that much, but he was their top prospect when he debuted, and we've now got over 150 innings of seeing Kyle Harrison at the major league level, and his ERA is like just about major league average. And I just recently talked about how a guy who just turned 23 like 11 days ago, that's a pretty solid start to your major league career. But it's about the like overpowering nature. He hasn't been overpowering like a Chris Sale, and the reference to Kirk Reeder has been more like that he's been more like a pitch to contact, velocity not super high kind of guy. So we'll further break down what we've seen out of Kyle Harrison and get to more questions, including the Giants' offensive approach and what it is, and are they trying to pull everything? We'll get to that and the Kyle Harrison question in just a minute, and before we do, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Tonal. Even the most dedicated gym goers struggle with consistency. The commute, waiting for weights, other people's sweat, yuck. It makes skipping a workout very tempting. With Tonal, you can choose from thousands of workouts and train in a way you actually enjoy at home. Tonal is the world's smartest and most effective strength training system that helps get you stronger. Powered by artificial intelligence, Tonal learns with every rep so it can deliver workouts personalized just for you. It's like having a personal trainer at home with you, as Tonal will optimize every workout just for you. Unlike traditional gym equipment, Tonal uses adaptive digital weights to advance your training techniques. From professional athletes to the mom of three, Tonal is trusted by thousands who have become their strongest. Right now, Tonal is offering our listeners $200 off your Tonal purchase with promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Tonal.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off your purchase. Tonal.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off. All right, as promised, Kyle Harrison and the Giants' offensive approach. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers on Monday. All could be lost. Giants get swept by the Mariners and the Braves sweep the Nationals. Giants could be 7 games out, and I'd be like, okay, season's basically over. So, a lot riding on every single game here down the stretch. And also a reminder about Postcast with Eric Engel. Check it out. Locked on Sports San Francisco. 49ers are getting ready to start their season. He's going to have postcasts for the 49ers as well, and the Warriors when they start playing. So Locked on Sports San Francisco on YouTube. Check it out. Subscribe. And then the Locked on Giants postcasts for instant reaction right after the game. Those go live on YouTube. But then once they're done, they get uploaded to our normal podcast feed everywhere but YouTube, because we have our own separate YouTube channel because he also does 49ers and Warriors. Anyway, getting back to the question about Kyle Harrison. So it's kind of rooted in, I think, velocity and strikeout rate is kind of what I'm getting from the question from Kevin. And so, 150 innings, 29 starts. Kyle Harrison's ERA is 4.04. Strikeout rate is 22.3%. It's like an average ERA and an average strikeout rate. But he's not an average age. He was 21 when he debuted, and he was 22 most of the season and just turned 23. And so I'm looking back at Chris Sale to start his career, and he started his career as a reliever. So that's kind of not apples to apples. And then when he finally broke through as a starter, he did put up a really good, ERA and stuff. But his strikeout rate was only 24.9% in his first season as a starter. Now, this was in an era when strikeout rates were generally lower, but first 2 years of his starting career, strikeout rate was about 25-26%. Whereas since then, it's been in the 30s pretty consistently. And for his career now, it's like 31%. And I also am reminded of Clayton Kershaw, who the first year of his career, his ERA was 4.26 in 107 2/3 innings with a 21.3% strikeout rate. I remember Kershaw debuting, and it's you could see the potential, but also the the walks were a little bit high. The ERA wasn't all that impressive. So I'm not saying Kyle Harrison is going to be Clayton Kershaw or Chris Sale. But when we look at Kirk Reeder, no, the comparison, that's not a good comparison. Kirk Reeder's strikeout rate was 10% in his career. In his debut season, it was 9.1%. I mean, he had a good ERA, 2.73 in that first season. Second season, it was 5.17 with a strikeout rate of 12.6%. Highest of it, with the Giants, Kirk Reeder's strikeout rate was 9.7%, which is just unheard of. That's just not modern baseball. But maybe you weren't talking about that, and you were talking more about ERA. And in Kirk Reeder's career, he was right about major league average in terms of ERA. And that's where Harrison has been. Except we're talking about a whole career for Reeder versus age, 21 and 22 seasons. This counts as Harrison's age 22 season. So velocity-wise, we have seen his average fastball velocity is down a mile per hour from last year, from 93.6 last year to 92.6 this year. So yeah, that concerns me a little. I'd kind of want to look month by month to see if it's gone down. Maybe that's just fatigue. He set a career high in innings for a season. They're kind of skipping him in this start in Seattle, so I would imagine maybe, and he did miss a month with an injury too. So I would imagine just kind of youth and building up arm strength and building up endurance is part of the equation here. And he still, to me, seems like the kind of guy who could have make a leap at some point. But the velocity, when it's hovering in the low 90s, it's harder to see that big leap happening. But at the same time, the results are good for a guy who's been 21, 22, and just turned 23 over 150 career innings. So Yeah, he's not been Chris Sale, but he's also not been Kirk Reeder. He's been somewhere in between. He's been Kyle Harrison. And I think the jury is definitely still out on what his career will ultimately look like. But if he can maintain higher velocity like throughout a season and pitch in the mid 90s or so, or at least 93, 94 consistently, then the sky's the limit, in my opinion. So finally, there's a question about offensive approach. And it's from Joey, who says, do the Giants hitting coaches emphasize making contact and using the entire field? Because it looks like the hitters are trying to pull every pitch, and if they don't make contact, they don't really care. I loved the bunt by McRae today, so this was obviously an old mailbag question. We need more of that. So it was a bad bunt. They got kind of lucky that they got a run out of that bunt, if I recall correctly. But okay, so I could do a whole episode about this, but I've seen this before, but and I'm going to try to just give you the numbers on the fly here. But when we look at, did you pull the ball? Did you go to the opposite field? Or did you hit it up the middle? We can find that pulled, so here we go. Pulled baseballs, just in general. Batters, if they pull the ball, have a 176 weighted runs created plus. They hit 346 with a 656 slugging. That's just pulled baseballs in general. So these are balls obviously in play. So we're assuming the ball was hit in play. And then if we change it and look at balls hit up the middle, we will find that it's just a 110 weighted runs created plus, 314 average, 454 slugging. But what was it for pulled? 176. So damage happens on pulled baseballs. That slugging number way down for balls up the middle. And then let's look at opposite field. This is something not a lot of people talk about, but I definitely was aware of. And opposite field, 104 weighted runs created plus. So the more you go the other way, the less productive you are. Now, there's another part of the equation which you alluded to here, which is well, at what cost are you trying to pull the baseball? Does it mean you're making less contact and striking out more? And that was basically what you asked. But if you're going to hit the ball into the field of play, based on these numbers, you want to pull it. That's where the better results are on pulled baseballs. And so when it comes to the question about the Giants specifically, I will look and tell you right now that for pull percentage, which is the percentage of balls in play that were pulled by the batter, the Giants rank 9th in baseball. The top teams there's a bunch of the top offenses in the game that are up there. San Diego is dead last. Chicago White Sox are second to last. Padres are having a great offensive season. The White Sox are having a historically bad offensive season. So it there's good offensive teams in the top in pull percentage, and there's bad ones too, and it's vice versa as well. And then opposite field percentage, Yankees are number 1. White Sox are number 3, and the White Sox are horrible. The Yankees are really good. And the Giants are 20th. I always like to look at where do the Dodgers rank because they're always, very good. So Dodgers are 13th at 25% essentially, and the Giants are at 24% essentially for opposite field. And when it comes to what was the last part of the question you asked? If they don't make contact, they don't really care. So do they emphasize making contact? So we can look at the pitch level data and go to StatCast and go to contact rate. San Diego's number 1. They have Luis Arraez, so that's not surprising. Giants are 12th in contact rate. So this is literally total percentage of contact when swinging at all pitches. So Giants are 12th highest. The last place team is the Rockies. The Mariners are second to last, so expect some swing and miss coming out of the Mariners in this series. But yeah, I mean, they're in the top half. They're ahead of the Dodgers. Giants make more contact on their swings than LA. And so, and then zone contact is kind of a more important number, I think. And the Giants are kind of right in the middle. So when they swing at pitches in the strike zone, they're 14th in terms of how much contact they make. Padres are number 1. Braves are dead last. Mariners are third to last. Dodgers are 20th. So it's like none of these numbers really indicate to me like this is what you need to be good at. Probably chase rate more than anything. How often do you chase? The worst teams are the Marlins and Rockies in terms of chasing. And the best teams in terms of not chasing are the Yankees, the Brewers, and the Dodgers. Those are 3 of the best teams in baseball. And then you throw in Seattle as 4th, and the Giants are 5th at not chasing in terms of the best chase rate. And so there you have it. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers on Monday, breaking down this big 3-game series. It's going to be Hayden Birdsong and Blake Snell and Robbie Ray up against Seattle. Now go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.